Good afternoon, Mr. Khumalo.
Good afternoon, Acting Chief Justice.
I didn't think that it was you.
Well, you should have if you had seen my CV.
For some reason, I didn't. Well, I must declare, now that I know it's you, Mr. Khumalo was in class with me at the University of Zululand many decades ago. He was a good soccer player, among other things. Rider, yeah, he was known as Rider. And I think it must have been taken from Rider Mufokeng.
Actually, Chair, that's wrong.
It
was taken from Rider Mufokeng, not Rider Mufokeng, Ben Kwape. He used to play for Pubs and Pirates.
Oh, okay. Is that an indication of which club you support? Or it might be career limiting to declare.
No, Acting Chief Justice, it's a position I played.
Okay. No, I thought let me just declare that. But welcome to this session, and thank you for availing yourself for consideration for appointment as a judge of the Gauteng division. I see that you hold a BProc degree from the University of Zululand, is that right?
That's correct.
And an LLB degree from the same university.
That is correct, Acting Chief Justice.
And an LLM degree from the US University of?
The University of Pennsylvania.
Yes, okay. And a higher diploma in company law from Wits.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And you were admitted as an attorney. Which year were you admitted as an attorney?
I stand corrected. I think it was 1992 on the 10th of April.
Yes. And have you been practicing as an attorney since then without interruption, or has there been some interruption?
There have been some interruptions, Acting Chief Justice.
Yes.
At some stage, I think not in 2007, I was requested to join the World Cup, the South Africa World Cup Organizing Committee to set up the legal department. So at that point in time, there was an interruption where I worked with them until 2011.
Yes. So that was what, an interruption of about what, 2 years?
No, it will be about 5 years.
Oh, about 5 years.
Well, 4.5 to be quite exact.
Yes.
Because I started in 2007 in January, and then when I had to stay until to close down the company, which was then done in June of 2011.
Yes. Okay. Well, I see that you co-founded Maseremule Attorneys.
Well, I co-founded the first Maseremule version, which was the Shabalala Maseremule Attorneys, which was immediately after I had been admitted.
Yes.
And then there was a second stint. Chair, I also did work for a corporate for Genco.
Yes.
That was after we parted ways with Chabalala Maseremule.
Yes.
But then later on, I think some 4 or 5 years later, Maseremule and myself then co-founded Maseremule Attorneys.
Oh.
So there are two versions of Maseremule Attorneys.
Well, Mr. Maseremule never told me about you when he acted in the labor court many years ago. So You might have been part of the firm at that time, I'm not sure.
I was part of the firm and I appeared before you several times.
Yeah,
Acting
but
Chief
I
Justice.
didn't realize you were in the same firm, I think.
Yeah, we were in the same firm.
Yes, okay, okay. And so apart from the 4 years or so when you were not in practice, since 1992, you have been in practice as an attorney, is that right?
Chair, like, as I had said, corrected myself, is that there is also that time that I worked for Billiton. But at that point, I wouldn't say that I was not practicing because I was attending court matters for Billiton, particularly labor matters,
Yes,
as an in-house counsel.
yes,
So, but if we are to be technical, there is also that 4 years where I was in corporate rather than in private practice.
yes. And you spent some time also at Chettle Thompson.
I spent some time, that's where I did my articles actually.
Oh, okay, yes. And you were exposed to a lot of labor law work there?
When I started, they used to have two departments, what we called the Human Rights Department and the Labor Department.
Yes.
And I started in the Human Rights Department. And the reason for that was that when they hired me, it was at the time when to have your right of appearance, you needed to have your languages, including Latin. And I had all the languages.
Yes.
So I started in the human rights because then I could appear in court.
Yes. And I see that there are cases in which you were involved in the labor court and labor appeal court that you have listed here, which are reported in well-known labor law reports.
Yes, Acting Chief Justice, and some of them you blew me.
I didn't remember that. Is De Beers one of them?
De Beers is one of them, Chief Justice.
Oh, did you appeal?
No, it was at that stage, it was at the Labor Appeal Court.
Yeah, okay.
So there was no need to, well, at that point in time, there was still confusion whether we could still
appeal or not.
could appeal at the SCA or not.
Yes, okay, okay. And you have acted in the High Court, is that right?
Yes, Acting Chief Justice.
And do you know about how many weeks you have done altogether in the High Court?
Chief Justice, I stand corrected. I counted something between 36 and 40. I'm not 100% sure.
Yes. And how have you found acting in the High Court?
It was very enlightening. And in fact, I still had to thank the JP for giving me an opportunity to do that. Very enlightening. I've acted basically, I would say, in the civil matters, also in criminal matters.
Yes. And have you done trials and motion court as well?
Yes, I've done. In fact, I stand corrected, my second week when I was acting, in that first 6 weeks that I was given, I did motion court.
Yes.
I first did unopposed, and then subsequent to that, I also did opposed motions.
Yes. And have you sat in civil appeals and criminal appeals as well?
Yes. Yes, and I've even, most of you realize that most of the judgments that I've penned would have been in criminal appeals and I think 1 or 2 civil appeals. I can't remember the numbers insofar as it is concerned.
Yes. And any of the judgments that you have done as an acting judge that have been reported?
I am not so sure, but I think there's a judgment, an RAF matter of, is it Bangiwe? Bangiwe versus RAF. I'm told it's reported, but I haven't seen myself.
Yes. Okay, Judge President.
Thank you very much, Acting Chief Justice. Mr. Khumalo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, JP.
I want a piece of the action as well. Me and you met at Tuflope University, isn't it?
That's correct, JP.
And we were in the same class.
We were in the same class also.
So when you mentioned Latin, we were in Professor Simon's class.
Was it Simon? Yes,
Yeah.
it was. It was. Yes, it was. and Professor Fesser in private law.
Yeah. Yes, I think your tally of weeks is 36, according to my spreadsheet. And you've done work in almost all the work areas, except for the tax court and full court appeals. Am I correct?
The full court appeals I've done with, in fact, that one civil matter that I'm referring to, it was a full court appeal. I was sitting with Judge Mutle and Van der Westhuizen.
I see. Okay. It reflects 0 on my spreadsheet, but thanks for that correction. And your list of judgments tells us you've penned 27 judgments in your 36 weeks of acting. Can you confirm that?
I can confirm that there may be more, but you remember I told you I lost my laptop and I couldn't retrieve certain of the information.
Yes.
But for purposes now, I would accept the 27.
Yes.
Well, that's a 27 up to now. There are those that subsequently I did not include them here, which were the ones that I penned in the last acting stint.
Yes. Having acted, or rather, maybe tell us about your practice. You've been with Mr. Maseremule in 2 versions, and then you're now with Ntshebe. It's Ntshebe in what?
No, it's just Ntshebe. We call ourselves Ntshebe Incorporated.
I see.
Yes.
What work do you do in that firm?
In that firm, we do almost, barring criminal work, we do almost everything, but I would say 70% of our work is labor work.
I see. Okay, that's how you know the acting Chief Justice.
I used to appear before him quite a lot.
And getting your nose bloodied now and then.
Yes.
Okay. So, coupled with your experience as a practicing attorney and your acting stints, you regard yourself as ready to be appointed permanently?
I regard myself as ready, JP.
Yeah. You appeared in the labor court, I've heard, and have you appeared in the high court or in the magistrate's court?
In the magistrate court, yes, I do. I did do my own appearances. In the high court, and I don't know why I did that. I never bothered to actually get the right of appearance.
Okay.
And I suppose the reason for that is that we had very few high court cases in our practice.
Yeah. Okay. Acting Chief Justice, that's all. Thank you very much. By the way, on campus, did you play for Cosmos or Madrid?
I played for Cosmos.
I see. Thank you. Thank you, Acting Chief Justice.
Was that as a striker?
Yes, I played as a striker.
Okay. MEC Lesufi, if you have questions, please go for it.
Thank you so much, Acting CJ. Umdonga missed an opportunity to get my vote by quoting Moroka Swallows.
I know, MEC, that you are a big swai.
So you spoke about Ryder, so you missed that opportunity.
Well, Ryder was a victim of AIDS. I wouldn't have exposed myself to that.
Thanks, Mdonga. From my side, it's your first time that you are appearing before us, if I'm not wrong.
You are correct, Commissioner.
And why did you hesitate, or is it because you felt you were not ready at that time, or the JP didn't give you enough acting opportunities?
Commissioner, what I wanted to accumulate more experience on the bench. I thought it would have been a futile exercise and a waste of time of you commissioners for me to come here. For example, I started acting in 2019. If at that time I would have applied, that would have been a waste of your time, and I wouldn't have wanted to do that.
And you are pretty convinced that you are ready?
I am convinced that I'm ready.
Thank you so much, Acting CJ.
Thank you, MEC. Commissioner Mutolo Slepu. No, I'm sorry, Shabangu Mdawe.
Thank you, NCJ. Good afternoon, Mr. Khumalo.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Mr. Khumalo, I've gone through your CV and the question.
Please speak up, Commissioner.
I said I've gone through your CV and your questionnaire, but I'm struggling to get anything that talks to transformation. Do you perhaps understand gender disparity in the legal profession? And what is it? What activities that you were involved in dealing with this problem?
Oh, sorry. If you finish, Commissioner.
If there is anything, can you also list, if possible, list the activities which you were involved with, or if there are other women that you have empowered, also mention them. Thank you.
Commissioner, I have not in a structured formal environment, but I've mentored quite a number of women. And in fact, I'm proud that one of them is currently or was currently also an acting judge, very current. In our firm, in fact, starting way back from Maserimule attorneys, we used to actually hire a large number, I would say a large number for a small firm of ours, of women, so that we can empower them.
Thank you, Mr. Khumalo. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schlemmer.
Thank you. Good evening, almost. I would just like to know from you, Mr. Khumalo, when I read through the documentation and I looked at the comments of the GCB, specifically concerning your knowledge of the law, that was a little bit concerning because they indicate here that you rely on outdated sources of law. You don't refer to recent sources, not relevant case law of the Constitutional Court. You sometimes go beyond the facts of a case. There was a quotation from the Supreme Court of Appeal which indicates that you misdirected yourself. You have a superficial understanding of the law, and you also have a lack of awareness of procedural law. How would you like to respond to that?
Madam Commissioner, I would dispute that. Yes, I take criticism, and like all of us, I'm willing to learn and take criticism. But insofar as some of the things that they say there, I definitely can say that that is not correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Mpofu.
Good evening, Mr. Khumalo.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Yes, I should also declare that I've known you for a long, long time. And my question is related to a question you asked earlier as to why it took you so long to make yourself available. Because I know that I think when I started doing pupillage, you were already an attorney, and most of your peers and our peers are now on the bench. So why did you not make yourself available of the opportunities, particularly in the labor field, where you have specialized for a long time? I mean, I know for a fact that somebody here who's not going to be mentioned was trying to subtweet me about not acting. But the first time I ever acted was 21 years ago at the invitation of the ACJ. acting as a judge. So in that time, when your peers like myself and other people, Puke, Masaramule, and so on, as mentioned by the SCJ, were coming in as acting judges, particularly in the late 90s, was it out of disinterest, or were the opportunities not available to you?
Commissioner, I was not given the opportunity. If I had been given, I would have taken it. As you say, for example, Puke Maseremule, I think the first time he acted was in 1999. Yes.
And when Nomali Chabalala also acted with me in 99.
Yes.
So, but I mean, that what I'm saying is that, okay, you might have missed that 99 wave, but surely then 10 years later, let's say in 2009, you would have made yourself available.
Commissioner, as I said, I've never been invited. In fact, the first time I was invited was by the JP, and when he invited me, I did not hesitate. I took the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I thought Commissioner Matosela had raised his hand.
No, I could ask just a follow-up on that.
Okay.
Do you subscribe to the view that you don't have to ask to act as a judge, but you must be invited?
Commissioner, I think I've been made to understand that you have to be invited. That's the unfortunate part. If my understanding is wrong, then I would. If I had known before that I can't just voluntarily offer, I would have done that before. But my understanding was that you have to be invited.
That's my understanding too.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Notjetsi.
Yeah. In fact, thank you, Ranisha. In fact, Mr. Khumalo, most of those people who lift up their hands unnecessarily, they cause problems there. So you did the right thing by not just putting yourself forward.
No, but just JP Mlambo, speaking in his favor, always ask people to make themselves available. And it has borne a lot of fruit.
Yeah. Okay, commissioners on the virtual platform, anybody who has a question there?
Thank you, ACJ. I'd like to just follow up on the question of how to deal with the GCB's review, because it isn't favorable to you. And I felt your dismissal of the question about it was perhaps a little bit superficial. One of the cases they referred to is the Supreme Court of Appeal case in which you are criticized. And it's a recent matter, 2020. So perhaps you could respond specifically to how we must view that criticism, and then also the criticism about the reserve judgments, please.
Commissioner, the matter you're referring to, this was a matter which emanated from a full bench judgment, where there were three of us, and I was the scribe for the majority. And Judge Mutle agreed with me in that particular matter. And as I said, that I accept criticism, and it's part of the profession. Some you get them right, and some you get them wrong. But what I do not accept is the assertion that my knowledge of the law is superficial.
Yes, thank you. Now, would you deal with the reserve judgment issue as well?
When it comes to the judgments that they are referring to, I concede that those judgments were issued outside the 3 months period, but this must be looked into its context. The judgment of mayors that they're referring to, that judgment, I was sitting with my senior in that judgment, and my senior had undertaken to write that judgment. And then subsequently, when there was a query of when will the judgment be delivered, my senior came back to me and asked me, and she told me that she was busy. Is it possible that I can take over and write the judgment? Which I did. And I did that within a period of a week or two. The other judgment that they are referring to, which is the judgment of Situse, and that is the judgment that you are saying is recent, that at the end of the day ended up in the SCA. That judgment, I had written it timelessly, but the problem that we had was that it was at the time when our senior judge in that matter, which was Judge Mutle, had just been moved to, I think they call it the special, the court in Poisons. I've just forgotten the name of it. So for us to actually meet, it became very difficult. And eventually, when we met and he signed, we then sent it to the other member, who then said, no, it does not agree with us and is going to write a dissenting judgment. I don't know how long it sat with him, and I was quite surprised that it was only delivered, I think, somewhere around, they said, 20-something, which had put it outside the 3 months period. That is my explanation, and I'm not being defensive in this particular instance. And as I said, that I accept and acknowledge that those judgments were delivered outside the 3 months period.
Well, thank you for dealing with that. Thank you, ACJ.
Thank you. It looks like we have come to the end of this interview. There are no further questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Khumalo, for availing yourself. You are now excused.
Thank you, Acting Chief Justice, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.